Hey guys, how you doing? This is Julio and today we're gonna do a few calculation drills. I hope you guys like it. Well, let's get going. Take a look at the questions, try doing them by yourself, and then afterwards you can look at my solutions. Here we go, let's start with question 1. We have 315 times 40% times 90% minus 300,000 times 40% times 85%. Well, it seems pretty clear to me that 315 is 300,000 times 1.005, and so I want to move this around a little bit to make it easier, and I'm going to make it, first of all, 300,000 times 1.05 times 40% times 90% minus 300k times 40% times 85%. What we can see here is this repeats, so we can put it out and it's gonna look like 300k times 40% times 1.05 times 90% minus 85%. Now let's do this one. What's 5% of 90%? 4.5%. So this is 94.5% minus 85%. This should be 9.5%. This is quite easy. This is 40 times 3, 120,000 times 9.5%. Well, 10% of 120k is 12k minus 5% of this. 5% of this, which is 0.5%. Well, 10% is 1.2, is 0.6k. So this is 11.4 thousand equals 11.4 thousand. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Here we go. Let me erase this a little bit. So that we can do another exercise. Or maybe I should skip this part for the next one. Oh, sorry about this. Okay, here we go. So now we have 22 billion over 22.5 billion. This seems a little bit complex. I'm going to change it to 1 minus 0.5 billion over 22.5 billion. I want to cross the billions out so that this looks easier. It's going to be the same thing. What is 0.5 in 22.5? I have an easier way to look at this. 0.5 in 2.5 is 20%. 0.5 in 22.5, actually 2.5 in 22.5. Sorry. Here we go. Is 4 of these are 10, 8 of these are 29. 1/9. So this should be 20% of 1/9. 1/9 is 11.11%. 20% of this is 2.22%. So 1 minus 2.22% equals 97.8%. Okay? This equals 97.8%. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Here we go. Erase this real quick. Take a look at it while I do it. Alright, let's go. So we have the same 22.5 billion times 4.8%. Well, these seem to have come out of a case. I know they have, I did it myself. I want to make this a little bit simpler by turning 4.8% into 5% minus 0.2%. And so 5% of 22.5 is the same as dividing it by 20. So 2.25 billion is 1/10 of this, and half of it should be 1.125, because I know that half of 2 is 1, half of 0.25 is 0.125. So this is 5%. And now what is 0.2%? Well, 0.2% is 0.1% times 2, and 0.1% is going to be this divided by 1,000. So it's 22.5k times 2, which is 45k. Okay, 45k. Actually, yeah, that's it. So 1.125 billion minus 0.045 billion equals let me do this the hard way. I don't want to mess this up. This is 1.08. Oh, it's 1.08 billion, which seems right because it's slightly below 1.125. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Take a look at it while I erase this one. Alright, let's get going. So here we have 2,160 times 1.2 thousand. First of all, I want to reality check this. So going to be something around 2k times 1.2k, which should be okay. With a k is going to be an m, right? And 1.2 is going to be a 2.4, so it's going to be around 2.4 million. How am I going to change this? It's going to be slightly above. What's 160 in 2000? That's 8%. And if I increase this by 8%, then I'm going to get to this. It's 2.4 times 8. 4 times 8 is not 48, that's 4 times 6. 4 times 8 is 32. 8 times 2 is 16. So this is 2 and 9, 1.982. Well, this is 8 times 2.4 million. Now if I divide it by 100, I'm going to get to 88%. And I'm going to get 0.0192 million. This should be 8% of this. Does it look right? Does it look like 8% of this? Actually, it does not, because this dot should be here. So this dot is actually going to be here, and this I'm going to cross out. So this is now correct. So 2.4 million plus 0.192 million equals 2.592 million. So 2.592 million. Alright, let's move on to the next one. So take a look at them. I erased it while I was not recording, so it would be easier, but now you're gonna have to take some time and look at it. Try doing it by yourself, and here we go. So the first one we have is 1/17. 1/17 seems a little bit hard. I know it's a little bit above 5% because it's larger than 1/20, but let's get to it. I know that I don't really know what 1/17 is, but I know that actually let's take a step back. I know that 1 over 13 is actually, well, I'm gonna have to cut this part. I know that 13 times 13 is 169, which is pretty close to 170. So what I'm gonna do here is turn this into 1 over 13 times 1 over 13 times, actually, I'm gonna turn this into, well, let's start over. Here we go. So the first one we have is 1 over 17, and this should be a little bit above 5% because it's a little bit larger than 1 over 20. But let's get to it precisely, or a little bit more precisely at least. 1 over 17 is, I know that 13 squared is 169, which is pretty close to 170. So I'm going to turn this into 1 over 1.3 times 1 over 1.3 times 1 over 10. Because this would lead me to 1 over 16.9, which is close enough. And I know that 1 over 1.3 is roughly 77%. I'm going to round it to 75%, and it's going to be a little bit easier to do. So what I want to find here is 75% squared times 1/10. Well, I know that 75% squared, 75% minus 25% of 75%. And 25% of 75% is 3 times 1/4 of 25%. 1/4 25% is 6.125% times 3, actually 6.25% times 3, that's 18.75%. So I'm going to subtract 18.25% of 75, and that is 75 minus 20, 55 plus 1.25, 56.25%. Sorry about tilting it all around. I'm going to move back here. So this is 75% squared. And now I want to divide it by 10, and I'll get to 5.625%. And this is my value for, an approximate value for 1 over 17. Let's move on to the next one. Well, this was a mess. 1 second. Take a look at it, try doing it by yourself while I clean up my mess. Here we go. Well, what's 1 over 12? I know that 8 times 12 is 96, so it's going to be around 8%, but not exactly that. How am I going to get to 1 over 12? There's something that's going to make this easier. I want to turn this into 1 over 6 times 1 over 2. And this is half, quite easy to do. What's 1 over 6? I know for a fact that it's 17%, or at least close to that. Half of 17% is 8.5%. 8.5% is more precise than 8% as a value for 1 over 12. Now I'm going to get to 1 over 14.5. I conveniently chose this number here because I know that 12 squared is 144. Now I think you know where I want to get to. This should be 1 over 12 times 1 over 12 times 10. 1 over 12, 17%, actually 8.5%. 8.5% squared times 10 should give me 1 over 14.5, which should be higher than 6%, or at least close to that. Here we go, so 8.5 times 8.5, 525, so 5, a 2 here, 540, 2. Oh. 42.5, and now 0 here, 8 for 40, 64, 68, so we have 72.25 over 10,000 equals 8.5% squared. Now if I multiply this by 10, I get 7.225%. So this should be 7.2, around 7.225%. Alright, I hope this helped you guys. See you in the next one.